battle between Arteta and Postecoglou play out. Let's take a look, and we'll begin with Spurs on the ball. The way that Spurs approached their goal kicks and deep build-up play was intriguing, with Romero and Van der Veen splitting either side of the goalkeeper, whilst at times the fullbacks could both remain deeper. As always, Bissouma was the hub of the team, beginning as the only pivot in these phases, and Arsenal, particularly in the first half, were hyper-aggressive with their press, with Nketiah often being joined by Odegaard from midfield in order to be well positioned to press the centre-backs, whilst Vieira would often push up onto Bissouma. With Bissouma being tied up like this, in prior matches we have seen Postecoglou use Porro as a secondary pivot at times, allowing players like Sarr and Maddison to remain higher up the pitch. Or we've also seen Postecoglou use two inverted fullbacks, with both Porro and Udogie alongside Bissouma. We did see Spurs do this at times, however Arsenal was so aggressive with their press that putting Porro in these high pressure situations to receive in central zones could have been dangerous, as we've seen in prior matches. And in fact we often saw these situations where Vieira and Rice were well positioned to press the pivots, leading to turnovers in dangerous positions for Arsenal. So to counter this, rather than having Porro as a pivot, he could start wide or even higher up the pitch, and instead it was Maddison who operated as a genuine second pivot alongside Bissouma in these situations, due to his much improved press resistance compared to Porro operating deep. But it should be noted that Arsenal's press was so aggressive in these man-to-man scenarios that even he was not immune to losing the ball in dangerous zones. And we saw Arsenal's press adapt as the game demanded, as Porro rarely remained in these traditional right-back zones, instead inverting into more central regions, and Jesus would not hang out on the touchline, and would look to follow his man into these zones, to ensure that once again Arsenal had a fairly man-to-man configuration, to avoid being overrun by Spurs in the central zones, as they had so many men in the middle of the midfield. But by being so man-to-man, the press from Arsenal had to be extremely coordinated, meaning that if the centre-backs had the ball and the front two chose to press the Spurs centre-backs, Vieira and Rice had to back this up, potentially leaving space between the lines for the likes of Sarr or the dropping Son to move into. But with the pressure on the centre-backs, this would be a difficult pass to find. However, on more than one occasion, we did see the front two pressing, but Vieira and Rice not backing up this press, meaning that Bissouma now had the ball and had broken the press, which led to massive problems, as we'll touch on later on. As the match progressed, Postecoglou spotted a defensive weakness down Arsenal's left-hand side. With Porro inverting and dragging Jesus with him, Sarr often looked to exploit these right-back zones and receive the ball in a little bit of space. But again, Arsenal were hyper-aggressive with that press, looking to be almost man-to-man, meaning that Zinchenko was often immediately onto Sarr. This now led to massive problems due to the interaction between Son and Kulusevski. What these scenarios meant is that Son would often drop in to look to receive the ball, and now there was a 2 versus 1 against Gabriel, and we saw Son looking to turn the ball around the corner to Kulusevski on more than one occasion, leading to dangerous situations and even the build-up for one of Spurs' goals. Another commendable aspect of Spurs' play is that despite the magnitude of the occasion, they did not abandon their principles and looked to play out even in high-pressure situations. That was helped by Bissouma, who is the hub of the team, being able to more often than not evade the pressure. And when Arsenal were pressing high, we often saw Spurs looking to begin down that right-hand side, either by first going centrally to Bissouma, then filtering it out to Sarr or Porro, or if the press was not aggressive enough, Spurs could immediately go out to the right. This would now force Arsenal across the pitch, as Spurs were looking to overload that right-hand side and potentially open up that interaction between Son and Kulusevski that we've spoken of. But at the same time, what this would now mean is that if Spurs were able to turn the ball around to the other side, to the left-hand side, either through Bissouma or by going back to the goalkeeper and finding Udogie or more often Van der Veen, Arsenal were now heavily underloaded on the left-hand side. And down this flank we would see Udogie look to underlap, meaning that Johnson would often receive this first pass. White would be drawn to him, and time and again we saw the opportunity to play in Udogie on the underlap to get on the end of the pass, but the weight of the pass was often not good enough, or the pass was just not seen. We also did not see Johnson make the most of these 1-versus-1 situations to get into dangerous positions higher up the pitch. But again, it was impressive how Spurs made the most of Arsenal's press as it began to break down in that second half. But let's look at Arsenal on the ball. When they were building up off the goal kick, we saw similar principles, with Son often looking to pick up one centre-back who was splitting either side of Raya, being assisted by Maddison, who from deep would look to pick up the secondary centre-back, whilst Bissouma and Sarr backed up this press. But in more open play situations, it wasn't always a front two from Spurs, as we could see Maddison prioritise picking up Rice to ensure it was man-to-man in the midfield, making it harder for Arsenal to dominate the play through the centre. And for the most part, Arsenal did look to build up with a back three, and in deeper zones, that would be Raya pushing up as the central centre-back to allow Zinchenko and Rice to operate as a double pivot, potentially outnumbering Maddison deep and generally creating a 4-versus-3, while White, in scenarios like this, could stay deeper, but he was also comfortable pushing up the pitch, allowing Saka to move infield. But in more open play situations where it wasn't feasible for Raya to be the third centre-back, as we've often seen from Arsenal, it was White who was dropping deeper to be that right centre-back, allowing Saka to maintain the width. And we saw in situations like this that Zinchenko and Rice were quite comfortable holding on to the ball, backed up by Vieira, who could push high up when needed, or drop into these deeper build-up zones. And when Havertz came on, we did see him also drop in deeper, like Vieira did. However, Vieira's more of a natural midfielder, so when he was deep, he actually provided a genuine progression option and was generally better in the build-up than Havertz, giving Arsenal a different dynamic, as they could more easily dominate this left-hand side. It also meant that on that left-hand side, we could see a lot of rotation between this triangle of Jesus, Zinchenko and Vieira, as all three were comfortable taking up any of these positions momentarily. And this left-hand side overload did tend to drag Spurs towards that right-hand side, allowing Arsenal to still create a positional advantage. Odegaard in these scenarios was often highly aggressive, looking to make runs through the half space into the box, and this meant that Udogie had to keep one eye out for him, thus allowing the switch into Saka. On more than one occasion, Saka found himself isolated against Udogie, and we did see an early yellow card for the left back, as well as Saka, when backed up by a deep runner, managing to open the scoring. However, with his man on a yellow card, we might have expected Saka to be more aggressive in the 1-versus-1 situations, but for the most part, Udogie did deal with that well.